Hi, everyone. Thank you again so much for being here with us this afternoon. My name is Ann Lieberman. I use she or they pronouns, and I'm the Director of Policy and Programs for Athlete Ally. Athlete Ally is a nonprofit organization that works to end homophobia and transphobia in sports and to empower athletic communities to exercise their leadership for LGBTQ plus inclusion. So I'm thrilled to be here in conversation today with these folks on the panel that I'm going to introduce in just a moment. And we're really here to reflect on what was such an incredibly powerful Pride Month, to talk about athlete activism and intersectional allyship. And this Pride Month, it really felt like the whole world was waking up to the Black Lives Matter movement as we continued to witness brutal and systemic racism resulting in the loss of countless innocent Black lives at the hands of police and others. We also saw even more athletes take a stand against police violence, resulting in a different kind of commitment and attention around doing meaningful anti-racist work in this country. It's been a moment where people are coming together to understand that our collective liberation is connected and that we have to be intersectional when we commit to fighting injustice anywhere. So I am absolutely thrilled to be in conversation today with Phaidra Knight, Sharnee Zoll-Norman, Cece Telfer, and Sarah Axelson. Each of these powerhouses has been committed to social justice in sport for quite some time and have deep and varied perspectives on how we can make change in this country and beyond. So could each of you introduce yourself, name, pronouns, in a sentence or two on why you agreed to spend this sunny, for you hopefully too, Thursday afternoon talking together. Cece, let's start with you.
Awesome. So, hi everyone. My name is Cece Telfer. I am the 400-meter national champion hurdler in the NCAA Division II category. And I definitely stand up for justice and equal rights. And yeah, I consider myself pro-Black because, you know, we all know that all lives matter, but Black lives matter too.
Thank you, Cece. Sharnee. Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Sharnee Zoll-Norman, she pronoun. And, you know, I'm here because I think representation matters. I think, you know, to see women, men, transgender, LGBTQ community as a whole, Black, white, every different race as a whole coming together and having these conversations, able to represent ourselves and represent others and speak from different avenues, I think is extremely important. And so just trying to learn myself as well as share my story.
Thank you. Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Axelson. I use she and her pronouns. I'm the Senior Director of Advocacy for the Women's Sports Foundation. And the Women's Sports Foundation is a national nonprofit, and we're the ally advocate and catalyst for tomorrow's leader. And we exist to enable girls and women to reach their potential in sport and in life. And so much of, you know, what I think we'll talk about today is central to our mission as an organization, and really making sure that we stand for inclusion and that we talk about the benefits of sports and why they're so important, and why we need to make sure that everyone has access to sports.
Thank you, Sarah. Phaidra.
Hi, my name is Phaidra Knight. I use she and her pronouns. And I'm a former USA rugby player and current aspiring mixed martial artist in training. I'm very happy to be here and agree to be here today because everything that I'm doing at this point in my life it revolves around social justice. I recently founded a clothing line, and you know, there's a big kickback that goes, or kickback in terms of the percentage of the profits that goes to, actually our partner this time around is the Women's Sports Foundation, but it goes to fuel organizations that are essentially out there doing the good work on the front lines as it pertains to social justice. You know, and I founded a nonprofit, Peak Unleashed, and we're doing similar things and with incarcerated youth. But everything I am, everything I stand for at this stage in my life and going forward is about bringing justice to marginalized groups. And so very excited to be joining the company of you all.
Amen. Also, sorry, I wanted to add she, her pronouns, and the fact that I am a 2020-21 Olympic hopeful athlete.
Awesome.
Thank you all so much. You know, we're 5 minutes in and I already know we don't have enough time because I could ask you all so many questions. So let's jump right in. The first question I want to ask all of you is, you all are very much steeped in social justice work. It's been an incredibly challenging time right now. And so I just want to ask, how are you? How have you been doing? What have you been doing for self-care? Let's go backwards. PK, Phaidra, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, in this moment, I'm doing quite well. It's a very hot day here in East Hampton, so beyond other than melting a bit, I'm doing well. Over the last couple of months, I have experienced an array of emotions. You know, I've been angry, I've been very sad, I've been delighted, and then I've, you know, I think I've been numb as well. And I don't anticipate that changing. Just a constant, like a roller coaster. I think, you know, I'm very much an empath, and so I feel a lot of what is going on around me. But I'm doing okay. You know, I am hopeful about the future. I reminisce and think back to when I was a little girl and I grew up in a small town in Georgia, very rural community, and quite a bit racist, actually. And, you know, growing up and knowing and just, you know, from a very young age, just dealing with a lot of the racial tensions that we're experiencing now, you know, it was a bit triggering, you know, over the last month or two. And so I'd never thought that I'd be, you know, look forward and, you know, be 46 years old and we'd be still dealing with a lot of these issues. But, you know, again, at a very young age, I knew I was put on this earth with the purpose of making change and, you know, leaving the world in a much better place than I found it. And so that's the hope I have, and the hope I have when I, you know, listen to the people on this panel and turn on a television and hear the activists out there doing all the good work. So emotional, but very hopeful and driven and determined to make change.
Thank you. Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing okay. You know, there's a lot going on in the world right now. The pandemic isn't over, and that's certainly still part of life here in New York. But, you know, the conversations around racial justice have really, I think, rightfully taken front and center of our world. And so I hope it sticks, right? I'm trying to figure out how to be a better anti-racist, how to be a better ally, and what I can do in my position as a white woman, right? Like, what can I do and how can I help, and doing my own education and making sure that, you know, I serve to help others and can do my part in this movement as well. You know, social justice is a marathon, not a sprint. So I'm in it for the long haul. I've been in this work for quite some time already. And so I think that this is just, you know, another step to the movement kind of shifting, and just hoping that this time it really, you know, I think some people are saying that it feels like it could be a little bit different this time around, that it feels like it might stick. So I'm hopeful that that's the case, but time will tell, and I promise to do my part.
Thank you. Sharnee.
Yeah, I'm with PK and Sarah, and that I'm okay. Obviously, we've had a little bit more time to kind of think and do a little self-care. I've really been trying to dive into my kids. So I'm an assistant coach at the University of Rhode Island, and I can't imagine going through what they're going through from ages 17 to 21. a pandemic, not being able to be in school, not have a sport that they love and is usually an outlet for all of us. So I've been really trying to be a support system for them and allow them a safe space to learn, to grow, and to talk. And like, again, like everyone said, I'm here, I'm hopeful. When I go to these parades and I go to these protests and I'm around and on these conferences, these panels, I feel hopeful. I feel that we're a lot more outraged as a group, as a whole of society than we are, than there are the bad, the people who just don't care or who are antagonizing or who are racist, period. So I feel hopeful. It's realistic that this is something that we have to deal with every single day. And hopefully that we're all ready to fight and battle that, not just the people who are affected, but the people who aren't affected, that they have to battle as well. And so hopeful that we're all enraged, that we're ready to move forward, but realistic in the fact that we continue to have to fight and be ready for that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Cece.
So I can relate to each and every one and everything everybody just said. Phaidra, especially because I'm an empath 100%. And the fact that I'm on hormone replacement therapy like makes me like even more like I'm getting like hearing you guys talk, I'm getting like so emotional. I'm trying to keep it in. I'm trying to like not get too like, into it, but I have to because it's authentic, it's real, and it's who I am. I'm okay. I'm a little bit less than okay. I currently work at a nursing home, so every time I go to work, I go in to perform care on my residents to help them to, help with meds, whatever. The news, they're always watching the news, so I'm always constantly seeing everything that's going on, all the hate and discrimination that, Black lives are getting. And I was oblivious. I was oblivious because I consider myself a full Canadian. Like I grew up in Toronto, and Toronto is very multicultural. My friends were super diverse, like Black and Asian, Black and white, Black and Indian. Like they were all like, so I was very oblivious to racism and hate against like Black lives, especially because in Toronto we were so like diverse and together, and like I feel like we're so much like we're so united. It's we learn it in history, but we never really like see it. But coming to America and like being here, oh my God, it's a lot. Like I notice even driving like speed limit. Like I struggle driving like 30, and to see like middle-aged white woman just like going 15 to 30, and at the end of the day if I go 33 I'm gonna be pulled over by a cop. Like things like that like blows my mind, and it kind of like put me in a sense and in a situation where I feel very vulnerable, and anything that I do I have to think twice about it. And we I came to the sudden realization that we're not all equal. We're not. And that breaks my heart because that's not what I'm used to. And as a person that wears their heart on their shoulder and treat others the way I want to be treated, and to be ostracized and to suppress who I am, like it's hurtful. And I found myself breaking down in one of my residents' room, and I had to hide myself because like, after seeing what's going on in social media and on the news, like I thought to myself, like, damn, like, what about me? Like, I'm a Black trans woman living in America. Like, I never really believed the statistics until now. Like, I'm scared for my life. Like, I don't even know if I'm gonna live past 35. Like, it breaks my heart, and I just don't know how to express. Like, I I don't know how to. Can't find the words, but all I know is that like no matter what happened, I'm always gonna stand up. I'm always gonna stand up for what's right. I'm always gonna stand up in when it comes to social justice. I'm always going to um, amplify my voice because it matters. And even if the one time I do amplify my voice and I end up like getting killed for it, oh well. I'm doing it for a good cause. I do what I believe, and I'm not gonna back down in the face of like freaking death. Like that's crazy. Like I'm Black and I'm proud, and I'm gonna stand up for being Black and proud, and stand up for everybody else, LGBTQ, straight or not. Like I'm enraged.
Yeah. And I want to thank all of you for being really honest and candid about how you're feeling and what you're going through. And part of the reason I wanted to ask this question is because behind the work that we do and that a lot of us do together in this space, there are real people dealing with feelings and emotions every single day. And this is a terrifying, at the same time, powerful time. And so I'm grateful for all of you and the work that you're doing and for coming to this conversation with the passion and honesty and just realness that I think a lot of people in this moment need to hear right now. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And with that, Sharnee, my first question is for you. You just mentioned all the coaching that you're doing, and you're such a powerful role model to so many people. And you've also had the opportunity to be an international athlete, and racial justice, LGBTQI plus issues, looks very different in different contexts. So I'm wondering, first, if you can talk about how you've seen this conversation around social justice and specifically racial justice and LGBTQI plus issues, differ in some of the international contexts you've played in.
Right, absolutely. And first, I kind of want to say that athlete activism, it seems like it's had a surge in media, right? But athletes have always been at the forefront of social justice issues and speaking up and using our platform throughout the history of sports. That's happened. And so whenever there's need for massive attention for causes or racial injustice, teams and athletes and their likeness, they're used to gather that attention. And so I'm glad to see that it's getting more. Social media, we have WNBA players on ESPN now speaking when they've been at the forefront of this for the past several years. So it is good. And, I think the difference with the issues globally, more so overseas in Europe, that I've felt is that, here in America, we're supposed to be known for our free thinking society, right? America is supposed to be built on the ideal of everyone is created equal. And that's not true. We're seeing that in 2020, that is not the world that we live in. And it's a fallacy. It's something that, some people have lived with their entire lives. And some people are just waking up to it and realizing that it is true. And it's not just someone playing victim or trying to use the system to get ahead, that it's actually something that's true. And a lot of people feel that. When I played in Poland, it was a country that was, through an extended period of time, was under a communist regime. And so they didn't have the luxury of free thinking. They got told what to think, what to eat, how much they made. And so now they're becoming extremely inclusive. It's a country where they're becoming a lot more inclusive. The environment, the atmosphere, I always felt safe. I felt included. I felt loved. And I do understand that I was privileged for that because I was an athlete and that I was an American. And so I was in a different position. But I do think that for overseas, they're seeing, how this is affecting America and that it's not good. And so they're now trying to change how they live and how they view people to be created equal or to be looked at as equal and treated as equal. There's not much racial injustice where I was in Poland because almost everyone looked the same, unfortunately. There wasn't a diverse group of people. When I walked down the street, people looked at me like I was an alien, right? So the racial injustice wasn't there as much, but the social injustice was, and the social fight was. But I think that for people in the European countries that I've visited, they're fighting. They're seeing that what America looks like and how, unfortunately, we're going back on what we're supposed to stand on. And they're trying to fight more. And I hope that, for us here in the States, we continue to fight and we continue to get to be that country that actually has all men and women created equal.
I hope so. Did you feel like there was a difference between your experience in Poland and the US being an out athlete? Or was there not that level of awareness in Poland?
It was. And it's crazy because a lot of people who live there would ask me all the time, how do you feel being out? My wife actually lived with me for several years. She came over and she lived there for about 4 or 5 years. They were like, well, how do people treat you? Are they mean to you? And we were literally on the cover of the third largest city. We were on a magazine there, you know, talking about being gay. And they were just really, really surprised because they had no idea that their country was so open, right? They grew up there, they lived there, they were Polish, and they were like, the people, what is going on? Like, this is not our country, but they were able to, you know, embrace me. And I think that part of it was that I was always my honest and authentic self. And I've been blessed enough and privileged enough to do that, because not everyone is. And I understand that not everyone is able to be who they are, to be comfortable in their own skin, or to be in a safe environment where they can. So I tried to be respectful, knowing that sometimes people don't appreciate that, but I also was myself and I was authentic, and I was embraced. And here in America, I don't think that I've had too much. I don't feel safe all the time holding my wife's hand walking down the street, which is unfortunate. And I felt that more here in America than I did overseas, actually, which is scary. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also would imagine that your being on a magazine cover in Poland created a whole different level of visibility and awareness, even for other queer folks in Poland. So I bet you also have had impact that you don't even know and might never know, but that's really incredible.
I hope so. I hope that people can see, you know, that no matter what you see or what you think about someone who's LGBTQ plus, that we're all just the same. We're more similar than we are different, right? And we bleed the same, and we have feelings, and we love. No matter who it is that we love, we love. And I hope that I was able to put a face of, you know, someone who is compassionate and caring and kind, to, I guess, a stigma, and that I was just being respectful. I just wanted to be myself. I wanted to play, and I wanted to love that country and that culture. And I wanted to embrace it, and I wanted them to embrace me. So I hope so.
And that's, I think, what Sarah and I see a lot in our advocacy work, is when people finally are able to put a face to an issue, that it becomes very, very hard to go deep in your bias. So that's really incredible. Phaidra, next question is for you. So you, for a long time, have been, you know, speaking on panels, speaking out on LGBTQI plus equity and racial justice. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on the current moment that we are in now, and just the changing tide of athlete activism. And also, to Sharnee's point, athletes have always been at the forefront of social justice movements, but now I think we're seeing even more athletes, and also a number of white athletes who, even in leagues as conservative as, dare I say, the NHL, are making serious commitments and financial commitments to supporting Black-led organizations, et cetera. So we'd just love to hear your thoughts on that, as somebody who's been involved in this fight for a long time.
Yes, as Sharnee said, you know, athlete activism has been around. I mean, I think it dates back to probably 532 AD. And so it's nothing new, but I think the playing field that we're on now is dramatically different, right? We are in a social media age. The reach is exponentially greater than it's ever been, and that lends a tremendous advantage to athletes to really use their platform, you know, for social justice. So, you know, I mean, I have many feelings. I think that, you know, there are a number of people out there, folks like Maya Moore, who, you know, took the season off and is looking to take another season off, you know, to make a stand, and to basically, she fought a conviction, as we all know. I think we are pretty familiar with a gentleman who had been sentenced to 50 years in prison. Others that followed suit in the social justice move to take time off from the WNBA in particular, or like Natasha Cloud, and yet Renee Montgomery. So, you know, you have these incredible athletes, and I want to give full credit. I think women fall under the radar. Female athletes always fall under the radar, and they don't get the praise that they deserve. But you have athletes, particularly female athletes, who are putting their careers on hold, right, to make a stand, to do the blue collar work, to actually make changes. And I don't think that should go unrecognized. You know, you have a plethora of other athletes, LeBron James. You've had athletes, you know, throughout history, you know, Muhammad Ali, Billie Jean King, who have used their platforms to really make changes. And so, and not only for, you know, in the case of Maya, wrongful convictions, but, you know, using it for equal pay, like in the case of Billie Jean King, using it for racial justice and so forth. So it's refreshing to see that. It's very promising, I guess, when I take a look at what's to come, to see such synergy amongst various races of athletes. And it's easy oftentimes to get caught up in the minority, the minority of athletes that maybe take a very opposite view. It's a little bit disheartening, but at the end of the day, I think you have many, many more athletes that are standing up for human rights, equal human, you know, equality with human rights across the board. And so, you know, that's tremendous. I think, you know, prior to really the George Floyd killing, I think athletes were a bit limited. You know, Colin Kaepernick, you know, taking a knee was perceived as a bad thing by a lot of people. And it was never, you know, for him about protesting, you know, the flag. It was a protest of the unjust treatment of Black people by law enforcement. I mean, it's completely different, you know, take. And so now, you know, because he stood strong and other athletes really used their platform to really push push the issue, we are seeing a breakthrough, right? People now, or more people understand, in light of the recent killings, that this is bigger. You know, this is actually relevant, and we need to take a stand. Yeah, so I know I'm rambling a bit, but it's just been refreshing. I think athletes, obviously, we are a special breed. We're pretty confident. We, you know, are constantly failing, and so we have sort of aggregated this level of confidence that most folks probably don't have. So we are bold. We will speak out. We will speak out even when others, you know, shame us for it. And I think that's just proven, I think, to be a game changer, especially now. And so we have to just continue to use our voices, use our platforms. You know, now we have a lot of attention, right? We're in a pandemic. Everything's sort of at a standstill in some parts of the country. But it's maintaining the momentum. It's really pushing forward and keeping people engaged, and keeping this very relevant so that it doesn't simmer down and, you know, the next distraction comes and takes the attention, you know, of folks. So it's refreshing. It's refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely. And thinking about how to keep that momentum and keep folks organized despite COVID is going to be an ongoing challenge. And I'm also, you know, to go back to Cap's protest for a second, there was a really interesting piece in the New York Times this past Sunday that was an analysis of the way in which now the athletes who are standing are being questioned. You know, why aren't you kneeling? And how this conversation has entirely shifted. And it was an interesting full circle moment for me as I was reading it, because I don't know how you all felt when Cap first started kneeling, but when we saw Cap kneel and then other players start to kneel, and this, you know, the WNBA players, the Minnesota Lynx wearing BLM shirts, I was thinking about, wow, this is a resurgence of athlete activism coming in a wave. And so now we're seeing even more of it. And I was very aware of being in a moment in history that people are going to talk about, like we currently talk about Bill Russell and Muhammad Ali and, you know, all of the folks whose names we invoke. So it's really, really powerful. CeCé, my next question is for you. You've disappeared from my screen though, but I'm sure I'll see you again in a second. I would love if you could tell us a little bit about your journey in track and field and what it has meant for you to have allies on your team.
All right. Can you guys see me again?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So my journey in track and field has been an emotional roller coaster because, first of all, it shouldn't be an emotional roller coaster because I use athletics as my my therapeutic getaway to get away from everything. So like, you know, stay out of trouble. Like, don't hang out with the bad groups. Like, being an athlete in like middle school, high school, college, like your whole time is basically spent with athletics and education. So that's how I like to get involved, so I can stay away from all the negativities, from all the distractions, from, you know, because I'm one to keep focused and I'm very determined on my goal. So being an athlete is how I get away, how I escape, how I get away from the rigorous and strenuous environment of education and like society. So when I finally became, you know, when I finally was allowed to be myself and live my authentic life, it kind of had like this stress on me, and I felt overwhelmed, but I also felt free. And then when I finally get all this, when I'm getting all of this like negative attention from social media and from people who don't understand and people who aren't really educated on the topic of trans lives and you know, all the makeup of trans lives and, you know, who we are and what we go through, I use that as fuel and as fire, and it just makes me want to do it even more because it's giving them something to talk about. It's making their head hot and it's getting them heated, and I'm like, good, because that means I'm doing my job, I'm doing it right. And I recently started having this mentality because before it was really hard, you know, going through HRT and getting bashed from the media, and you know, I have like this the sense to read people's body language. So when I'm in public, I see the way people look at me and, you know, the judgment in people's eyes and their body language. So like I stopped doing all of that, and being an athlete and having my teammates to really have my back is a huge help, because I was worried that my teammate, especially the guys, they would have never, you know, they're probably going to be a little fake about it, but like they would have never fully accepted me. But for them to really come out and support me, and when we go to track meets with other teams from other conferences, and they get into altercations and they stand up for me, and they not only stand up for me because I'm on their team, they stand up because it's right and it's facts, and they too have done their education to know that this what people are saying, that me competing is unfair. It's not unfair. The thing that is unfair is the fact that I have to undergo suppress my hormones and change my whole biochemistry in order to feel like I belong, and in order to feel like I can be the person that I've always wanted to be, and in order to bloom. They thought that that was unfair, and one of my teammates actually teared up, and he is this like macho guy. You would never think that he would tear up, but like that really had my heart, and I really knew that it was genuine, and people like my friends and my teammates had my back, so I had nothing else to worry about. So this journey, it's definitely not over because it just started. So, and it's a very I want to say new, but not really new journey, because I've been running track my whole entire life and it's not nothing new to me. So it's just made me more hungry and more eager to be successful, and like and get them talking and get them more involved. You know, I want to amplify my voice, but I also want my allies to amplify their voice too, to educate others. So at the end of the day, I don't have to keep educating others, and we don't have to keep educating others, because our allies are also spreading the word, and you know, they're getting that education, which is very important out there. Once you receive that education, what will you do with it?
Absolutely. And allies in the racial justice movement, in the LGBTQI plus justice movement have to step up so folks are not the only ones responsible for educating people, because it's totally exhausting. And
Mm-hmm.
and since we're talking about allyship, what would you say to folks that want to be better allies to trans folks or trans athletes? Maybe somebody has a trans teammate. What would you tell them to do? Where should they start?
Honestly, individuals who want to be better allies, my advice to them, athletics, trans lives or not, trans or not, LGBTQ or not, allies in general, people who are genuinely trying to, make the world a better place and promote inclusion, whether you're LGBTQ or not. My advice to them is, to do your part is, like I said before, educate. And definitely, if you hear a comment or something, take the time to correct them, because they don't know. You just have to assume from the get-go that they don't know. So you hear it, you say something. You see it, you say something. Because right then and there, that's strong allyship, because you're stopping the problem right there. So that's my advice.
Thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Sarah. So I love Women's Sports Foundation on so many different levels. And one of the many things I love about your work is that I feel that in the sports space, and especially the women's sports space, WSF is one of the few organizations that is actually doing intersectional work and not just kind of performative allyship work. I think really powerful work. And in an environment where trans women and girls are consistently excluded and discriminated against in athletic participation, WSF has been amazing and very clear on your stand that, when you say all women, all girls, all sports, you mean just that, right? So I would love if you could talk a little bit about, why WSF does support trans women and girls, and what are some of the actual issues facing female athletes today that we should be focusing on?
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for those kind words. To talk a little bit about our stance just from an intersectional lens, we are here doing our work because we recognize the importance of sports, right? You heard it from Cece, and I think all of us who are athletes who grew up playing sports, that resonated with me, right? Sports is our escape. Sports is where we, get so many things from. And so we want as many kids, and especially girls and women, to receive those benefits. And so for us, it's about making sure that not only are we saying like girls need access to sports, but the most marginalized girls need access to sports, right? Title IX has done an incredible job of opening doors for women and girls, broadly speaking. But if we actually take a step back and look at the numbers and look at where the impact has had, it's really suburban white girls who have gained most of the opportunities out of Title IX. And so making sure that as we talk about participation opportunities, we're not just talking about Title IX compliance in a broad sense, but we're also focusing in on communities of color and making sure that schools that serve predominantly students of color, that those schools are also providing opportunities in a gender equitable way, that we're advancing opportunities for girls of color in community programs. Like we have resources in our Sports for Life grant program that are specifically allocated to programs that either increase or create opportunities for girls of color and serve predominantly girls of color in their program. So really making sure that it's not just about talking about girls and women broadly, it's about really focusing in on who are the most marginalized populations. How do we make sure that those girls and women get access to sports as well, because we see the benefits that sport provides. And to your question about, trans women and girls specifically, trans women and girls are women and girls, right? Like that's why they're included in our mission. That's part of, why we do the work, and we stand for them. And they are among the most marginalized population. And so making sure that for LGBTQ kids, especially, right, if they have sports as an outlet, that could be huge for their development and for their mental health, right? It was big for me. Sports was my, my safe place. And so that means so much to so many kids. So making sure that we can create safe opportunities, inclusive opportunities, that's what we're here to make sure. As far as the real concerns around women's sports, right? Title IX has been here for almost 50 years. We just celebrated, right, the 48th anniversary. And June was an interesting month. June is usually, for women's sports, a time to celebrate. And we talk about the Title IX anniversary, and, we're usually have the WNBA season in full swing. But, this June was certainly different. And that's really, I think we've used that line a few times, but like this June really was different, and but rightfully so. And it certainly it didn't feel as much a celebration. We really used the 48th anniversary to talk about the impact of the law, or lack thereof, on girls of color, and making sure that we spread that information. I mean, it's something, like I said, we have a grant program focusing in on girls of color, but the amount of emails that I got from people after that panel discussion makes me think that there's still so much more work to be done to making sure that people understand what a gap there still is, right? So like, we know that there's still a gap between boys and girls, but understanding that for girls of color, there's still so much more of a gap is really important. And just across the country, right, we're seeing some problematic laws that are getting introduced, bills getting introduced, laws getting passed, that would not only govern trans girls in sports, but would potentially police cisgender girls in sports as well, which is a long history of policing women and girls' bodies in sports. And, it's to some extent trying to govern an issue that really doesn't exist, when like so many schools are out of compliance with Title IX, or not providing equitable opportunities. Like, that's, if we want to protect women's sports, if we want to, add opportunities for girls and women, like we need to focus in on protecting Title IX and adding opportunities for all girls. And I could go on forever, so I'm gonna stop and let you come back in.
I was also, Sarah, going to make a plug for the incredible Chasing Equity report that came out in February, that can be found.
It came out in January.
Oh,
yeah,
in January.
So in January, and then we launched the Equity Project in February. So the Chasing Equity research report so everything we do at Women's Sports Foundation is based in research, right? So we have a long history of research. Our programs, our advocacy, it's all informed by our research and our work, in that space. And so for the Chasing Equity report, it really served as essentially like a compendium of research, a meta-analysis, taking a lot of the stuff that's already out there in different places and putting it all in one place, organized by topic, looking at things like the impact of Title IX, women in leadership positions, women in, international sports space, really looking at the full landscape of girls and women in sports and putting all of that information in one place. But then at the same time, we had an original survey that was done as part of that research, and using the narrative and the answers from those surveys, which was directed at women working in women's sports, to really provide commentary to the stats that we were seeing. And it's really eye-opening. It's really exciting to see. But what it shows is that even though we've made such progress, and we might be in a much better place today than we were 20, 40, 50, years ago, we still have so much more work to be done.
Thank you for talking a little bit about that report. I think that I'm a data research and policy nerd, and I think when we don't have appropriate research on things, then it allows problems and issues that we know are facing women's sports, are facing trans athletes, are facing Black and brown athletes, to continue to be invisibilized. So the research that WSF does is really, really important to having data that we can then use in our advocacy work. So thank you. So to wrap up, I would love two things from each of you. So first, you can tell folks how they can hear all of the amazing things you have to say on social media, so they can continue the conversation with you after this this conversation is over. And then just some final thoughts, takeaways from today's conversation. What are you thinking about moving forward, percolating on, etc.? So Sharnee, let's start with you. We'll go in reverse order again.
So Twitter, Instagram, at Sharnee Zoll, SharneeZoll. I reply, to anyone with any questions, concerns, anything like that. So that's where you can find me. What I'm thinking about is just, all of us to stay encouraged, right? To number one, take care of ourselves, because we can't take care of anyone else if we're down, we're unhealthy, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. So we have to take care of ourselves in those avenues, but stay encouraged. While there's so much to do, we have come a good ways. And so for us to continue fighting the good fight and continuing to stay vigilant in how we're going about our work and how we're going about helping and inspiring and motivating, we have to stay positive in what we're doing. Stay realistic, but stay positive. And I'm blessed to be able to, get on panels like this to learn myself, to also learn different ways that I can help, that I can educate, and different avenues that I can explore, not only for myself, but for my kids and anyone else. So thank you guys. Thank you for sharing, for being open and vulnerable. And Joanna and Ann, thank you again for having me and thinking of me.
Thank you. I think reverse order, PK, you're next.
Awesome. You can find me, I'm going to shamelessly plug everything that I'm doing. So at Phaidra Knight, as it's spelled on the screen, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can also check out a lot of what we're doing with this PSK Collective, which again is a social justice movement linked in with the apparel industry. And that's PSK Collective, same thing, PSK_collective on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and I think Facebook. And then Peak Unleashed at peakunleashed.org, or let me, www.peakunleashed.org is the nonprofit. And we're dedicated, like I said, to working in personal physical development of marginalized youth with a real central focus on incarcerated youth. You can check us out there. And what I want to leave you with is, I agree with Sharnee, stay encouraged. If you see something, say something, right? And this time right now is extremely challenging. I mean, we are living in the thick of it, and I never thought we'd be living in the thick of it as we are, and I won't get political, but I will, with current leadership, it's tough, right? Because despite research and science, that administration tends to go on their opinion. And so, and we're also in a time that a lot of hate is being cultivated and spread. So I think at the end of the day, we've got to, like Sharnee said, take care of ourselves and remember love and empathy, even for those folks that are just slinging mud and trying to make our way so difficult. If we continue to put our noses to the ground and do the work, we will prevail. There will be daylight. And these times come upon us because there's still work to do, so it's better that this all came out than it, continued to sort of bubble under the surface. So let's get to work. Let's stay encouraged. See something, say something. Just keep it positive.
Thank you. I just wrote down there will be daylight. I'm going to put that on a sticky note somewhere where I can look at it every single day. Thank you. Cece.
Yes, so that was awesome, everybody. Thank you so much for having me and for being here. You guys are all wonderful. Catch me on Instagram at CeCe_Telfer. I was kind of discouraged from the media for a really long time, so I haven't used Instagram, Facebook, or Snapchat for like a really long time because of the backlash, and everybody is like, it's just bad. But now I'm using that and I'm turning it around to use it as a platform to like really I'm gonna start like having like real talks on my Instagram. So if you wanna tune in and like, you know, hear like real life talks about like what trans athlete lives are actually like and like what we go through, I want to give you the real like no cookie cutter, like very like raw, like it's just gonna be like what I've been through and like, you know, what I want to see and what the athletic world is really like as a trans woman. So I'm gonna be talking about that a lot more, and you guys have definitely encouraged me to definitely do that. So I'm excited. I've been thinking about it, but I'm definitely gonna like commit and start that. So Instagram, awesome. And I'm definitely looking towards the 2021 Olympics because I want people to talk more. And me being on that track in Tokyo will definitely give somebody some like give things for people to talk about. So I'm excited for that. I'm training hard. I'm not stopping. I know where I want to get to. I know where I want to go, and I'm gonna get there. And you know, having you guys behind my back, you know, supporting me and helping me and, you know, educating others makes me so enlightened. Like I'm excited, and 2021, here I come. So
Thank you. And I would never dare to speak for everyone on the panel, but I think in this case, I can say that we all hope to see you on the track in Tokyo in 2021.
thank you. Yes. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of where to find us on Facebook and Instagram at Women's Sports Foundation, on Twitter at Women's Sports FDN. So you can follow the organization there for all of the good stuff that we're working on. You can also go to our website and take the Equity Project Pledge, which is an outgrowth of that Chasing Equity research report. So be sure to stay looped in on everything that WSF is doing. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's here today, to Athlete Ally for having us. You know, as Sharnee said, definitely self-care is so important, but you know, the thing that's coming to mind for me right now is just how important every single person is in this movement, and that we need to support one another, right? So you need to take care of yourself, but make sure that we're all supporting each other, because this work needs all of us. And I'm just so thankful to have all of you with us today and in the fight, fighting the good fight.
Thank you. And I also want to thank all of you for taking the time. I truly want to talk to you for another hour. I know that so many folks watching are going to want to stay in touch and keep learning from all of you. And so if you are watching today, I would say if you found something interesting, inspiring, reach out to us, tell a friend. You know, we make change by making change together, and to Sarah's point, by supporting one another. So please continue to do that. And again, I just want to thank you all so much. I am so grateful to have been in conversation with each of you today. So again, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.